What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Soccer Wise, our big Monday show off a massive weekend of domestic soccer. What we love to do here. Come back, relive it all, and get back into the throes of red card mania for starters.
Yeah.
Red cards across the league in MLS and NWSL. I obviously watch both a lot. NWSL in 2 weeks has had 5 red cards across 16 games, which seems like a crazy rate. And MLS had like 4 this weekend, I think, alone. And almost all the teams that got the red card played better than the team they were playing against, Doyle. So make sense, I guess.
I mean, there's just been a lot of it this year around the league. I think NYCFC, their first 3 or 4 games played this year, they were facing 10 men. And I know, like, I actually wrote about this in my newsletter, tacticsfreezone.com. I wrote about this in the newsletter about how you can't trust any of the underlying numbers yet. And you shouldn't after 5 games anyway. But like Charlotte in particular, they've played these 2 games now against 10 men, and their expected goals differential in the minutes that they've played against 10, like they've battered these teams. It's like plus 3.52, and the rest of the season playing 11v11, they're like minus 3.52. It's like, which is the real, like, I tend to think that the team that can't do anything against 11 men, that like drew a scoreless draw at home against Miami's next pro reserves, I think that's probably the real team. But you got to admit, they scored 6 goals on the Red Bulls this weekend, and that's not nothing.
So we're going to hit the best things we saw, which, spoilers, is going to be a lot of these big Western Conference matches we saw. We're going to talk about Greizmann. So Mike Spillane already in the chat saying can't stay long. Talk to me about Greizmann. We're going to talk about LAFC's record that they set, which almost didn't happen. And it was like a real-time experience for everyone in the Discord for sure, about like reliving that VAR and everything else there. And we are going to talk about some under pressure teams, which I think is something we're going to keep monitoring. Charlotte, I think, was going to be on that list. They had scored 4 goals in 4 games. They scored 6 against the New York Red Bulls, but half of that was up a man. So I felt the need to bring that in. Also, I will say this. That number, 3.52 you said, roughly, for playing, is lower than Nashville's XG
from one game.
I watched that game, and I was like, I watched it back. I watched a little bit live, but I went and watched it back and was watching, and there's chances that aren't going in. And I'm like, I don't understand. I thought they scored 5. Like, you know, when you know what happened and you watch it and it doesn't really connect or make sense. I was like, there's no way Surge is missing these chances and they score 5. So then I was like, it was like 2-0. And I was like, I got to see what the XG is on this game. Yeah. And it was 3.56 for Nashville.
And that felt low.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
That felt like if I like just watching that game, I had a mental tally above 4.
Well, like, it helps that the opening goal should never have, like, not should never, but the XG on that's probably 0.0000.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. So.
What an insane game and what an insane performance. If you are listening to the show and you don't already know, subscribe to Tactics Free Zone, so then you can get Doyle's column. It comes out every Sunday. It's how I close out my weekend, and then
doing a little proofreading the
proofreading for you, which is bad. That's how we know things have gotten bad. If I have any grammatic corrections.
All right. So in my defense, UConn was on. Okay. In the NCAA tournament, like, it was unprofessional of me. It won't happen again. But I have an out. All right, like, I'm going to use my mulligan. It's used. It's done. It won't happen again.
You know, everyone told me UCLA had a shot. I think I picked UCLA in every bracket I did.
How did you do that?
I don't know. Apparently, it was a Big Ten game, and that's how they play. It was going to be grinded out and slowed down, and I don't know. Doyle, I watched 0 college basketball games this year. Yeah. I have, throughout the tournament, consistently thrown like a $1 bet on 1,000,000 games. I have watched 0 of those games, and I keep coming back for more. But I am undefeated on the women's bracket, which is where I normally am much better. Yeah. Which I did not pick UConn to win, as I said last week, though, in the whole thing.
Trash decision.
I know.
Sarah Strong is going to wreck you.
That's one of those brackets where everyone looks good until the Final Four, because it's like, for the most part, everyone's picking the same brackets. Yeah. And it's going to swing on basically 1 or 2 games. Did you pick South Carolina or UConn? And that's going to like swing the whole thing. And then it will go back to a 1 point upset from the first round. But we've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, last week was fun. Open Cup, CONCACAF stuff. If you haven't listened to it, really fun show with Charlie Boehm that came out Thursday late, where we recapped a lot of the wild stuff we saw. He is a sicko who's been in the content mines longer than me, but we both enjoy the same stuff. So it was really, really fun to do that show with him. We got a lot coming up over the next 2 weeks. U.S. men's national team, Canadian men's national team are in camps. We've got UEFA World Cup playoffs, as well as the intercontinental playoffs that our own CONCACAF, Jamaica, and Suriname will be in. So we will have preview coverage for you coming up for the first USA game in the next few days. And then we're going to come back around and we're going to be doing a post Saturday USMNT Canadian men's national team show that will be a preview of the next Tuesday game. And then we're going to have a live preview show coming after that U.S. men's national team game next Tuesday in Atlanta against Portugal. I can't remember Belgium, Portugal, but I think Belgium's first and Portugal is second, because Portugal is unveiling the new Azteca against Mexico, which is cool. That's like a cool thing that's happening. I've never been to the Azteca, but it's kind of one of those like legendary places. And then Club America gets to go home. So now whenever Nashville's going to go in and beat them in CONCACAF, you could say they did it at the Azteca, which is the dream, I think, for every MLS team. But of course, our bread and butter covering MLS, NWSL. So we're going to be here doing all of that over the next 2 weeks. Let's start with the best thing we saw on the weekend. It is not going to be Andrew Wiebe's touch on the sideline. It was
trash,
horrendous. Immediately, the hand goes up. I'm sorry, are you playing third base right now at midfield, Andrew Wiebe, at the Philadelphia-Chicago game? He's also not on this show because it's spring break, so he's with the kids, hanging out, doing weird Midwest stuff. The list of stuff he sent over was like, okay. I didn't realize the NASCAR race was later today. So he is not with us for this one. So Doyle, why don't you get us started?
Well, I was happy that Wiebe didn't shred his hamstring, reaching up and catching
an ankle without moving his feet.
It could have gotten ugly. So I'm happy he's healthy, though I'm a little bit embarrassed by like that whole performance on the sideline. The best thing I saw was the Texas Derby between Dallas and Houston, and particularly Dallas's overall performance, except for like the 5-minute period in the first half when they collectively went into a fugue state and Houston looked like 2011 Barcelona. But like that, I have been on Dallas all year long, and even had like some Dallas people getting at me for having them too high in the power rankings. I was like, no, the defense is good, and we know what the forwards can be, and Eric Quill keeps saying the right things about how he wants the team to evolve. And a lot of coaches say that, to be clear, but Quill's background gave me enough confidence that he was going to actually do it. And that's what we saw in this game, right? This is a team that has been very low block and counter, long balls, set pieces, maybe a little bit of pressure. In this game, they were over 50% possession for the first time in almost a year. And they were actually higher possession in the first half, playing 11v11 than they were in the second half, playing 11v10. But then over the final 15 minutes of the game, when they needed to have the ball and create stuff with it, they were actually able to do that. It wasn't perfect, right? And I'm not saying this is, the Caps or Wilfred Nancy era crew, but it felt like a concrete step against a pretty good team in a game that matters to both of them. And I was happy to see it, because the league is more interesting when there are more teams who are able to dictate the game. And that's what Dallas are trying to become. And I think they're a little bit closer to that team now than they were 4 days ago.
Yeah, they came out, and I mean, my first note on this game was Houston didn't show up. Like, it was too easy for Dallas.
Oh yeah, turn it off after 15 minutes. You're done.
For sure, which is what I did, and then I had to go back at halftime when it turned out it was 3-2. But Dallas, I thought, came out with intent, but Houston let too much of it happen, like knocked around the final third, all of that. And that's not even with the 2 goals. That's just like how simple the game was. And then Guilherme leads this comeback, which he's been special. The first goal is a bit of a gift, although it's a creative finish, obviously set piece. The third through ball, though, is like awesome. He comes all the way off the right wing. He comes to the left half channel. He plays it perfect English. He knows the speed of Anali. Like, he knows where he wants to put it. I think we talked about him like 2 weeks ago, but he clearly is going to be a good signing for Houston. He's now got, I think he's got 10 goal contributions altogether to start this season. He had 2 in the first day, so that helps as well. So huge like moment for him. I think for Dallas, the fact that they reacted to that by playing their soccer is really, really promising. Like, they didn't panic. They didn't go crazy. They didn't change everything that they do. And the second thing is, as you said, they have more possession. And that possession, I think, is allowing what was their weapon last year, which is wingbacks into the forwards, to still be dangerous. Because you look at this game, the way they draw you in, and then Kamungo is the switch into that channel, is a huge factor for them. And that's their danger player. So you're still getting them in open space 1v1 chances. You're just doing it through control possession, in which you don't have to defend as often and you don't have to do it from as deep. I would like to see Musa and Farrington start together in all of this. They have not over the last 2 weeks. There were reports this week where that it was because of a knock to Musa, but then he comes off the bench, and it's like the 2 goals that he's a part of, one is an own goal he forces. They are his perfect combination of touch, vision, soccer IQ, and efficiency. And efficiency with him and Farrington is like body efficiency. Like, they turn quicker. Their movements are more direct. They don't take a step sideways, so they're direct online. And the first goal is just Musa turns inside his defender. He's never going to let his defender back in front of him. Bond doesn't really know what, like, no one knows what to do as he's charging that near post, and he creates the chaos. And it's a special factor thing that when he's not on the field doesn't really exist, which I think is that other step for them, is like control the game, control the ball. But if they're going to score, it's going to be because Musa's around it a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, you've been the number one Petar Musa fan in the world, it seems, and it's justified. He is absolutely propelling my Golden Boot draft team, him and Sam Surridge, to like stratospheric heights. I'm just like leaving you guys in the dust.
Do we know?
Oh yeah, I'm crushing you guys.
Because I've got Nico Fernandez Marcao, which feels pretty good.
That's a good pick, but I don't think you're within 10 goals of me, buddy.
Okay.
Musa, everything is pitch control, right? Whether we're talking about tactics or whether we're talking about a duel. And your point about Musa's body control and his balance to control the area around him is really well taken. Like, it's a well thought through point, and you saw it happen in real time on the own goal. Like, on the game winner is just him back post isolated against a spot. Like, he's going to win that battle. I would choose almost any decent center forward in the league to win that battle. And that's something that Ben Olsen has to look at, because even playing 10v11 late in the game, you cannot let your fullback get isolated like that. But the equalizer, the own goal, it was just like, oh, this is a special player making a special play. And that's it. My head, because it's Dallas, my head immediately goes to like, man, they're gonna have to turn down $20 million offer for him soon.
So obviously, one of my complaints the whole year so far has been the fact that they haven't reinforced around him. They haven't gone to get the Lucho replacement, which Lucho failed and they got out of it. But
Valiente is just a guy. Like, he's a good little player, but he's just a guy. Yeah,
he keeps the ball moving. He's got a clean touch. He doesn't really turn up field that often. He doesn't really attack defenders or space. Like, that's the thing. Dallas,
he can use space. He doesn't create space.
So then we get the reports from Tom, I think, on Friday. And by the way, Tom is not gone. He's on paternity leave. This is his version of paternity leave, that he still has to break stories because he can't turn it off and he can't help himself. And he will be back in April on this show. We are very excited for that. Is that Santi Moreno is approaching a move to Dallas. We don't know the details. I would be surprised if it was a DP deal. So my assumption is it's a TAM deal. For anyone who doesn't remember, longtime Portland Timbers player, arguably the best U22 signing, like out the gate. That wasn't like a fake, I want to play with Messi U22 signing. And then played with the Timbers for a while, was oddly in and out of teams. at times when it felt like he was one of the best attackers in the group. And then he went down to Fluminense, as everyone does, goes down to one of the 3 or 4 big Brazilian teams, struggles to play a little bit, and then a new MLS team gets lucky by getting them on the back end, as Mikael scores a goal for Inter Miami this weekend. So that's the reports. Doyle, what do you make of him as a fit and sort of this move for Dallas?
He's another guy who's kind of just a guy. He's not a centerpiece, right? He's a really good complementary piece. Really good might even be pushing it. Like he's maybe he's just good. I don't have anything against the idea of acquiring him, especially because I think Dallas have a ton of GAM. But as high as I am on them after this performance, and we haven't even really touched on Farrington because, my God, that first goal he scored was like it was a Dennis Bergkamp goal.
Yeah.
I don't think that Santi Moreno is the type of talent that is going to close the gap between FC Dallas and Vancouver or LAFC or Nashville or Miami. You know, the actual top of the league. I still think they need to go out and get that DP number 10, and they have the spot open to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I think I'm higher on Moreno than you. I've always been I've always really liked Santi Moreno as a player. I don't disagree that he's not a centerpiece. Like, he's not. That's not what you're bringing in for, which is why, to me, if he's a DP signing, it's a bit of a mess. But 7 goals, 9 assists in 24, 3 goals, 6 assists in 23, 7 goals, 6 assists in 22. Like, he's put up
just
numbers.
A guy. That's the definition of just a guy.
On Timbers teams that, I mean, some of them were okay, but not you. There wasn't a Petar Musa to play to. I don't disagree that, on all of that. I think he does attack defenders. I think he is a little bit more dangerous than anyone else besides Musa in this team. I think the other nice thing about him is he can play out wide as a natural winger, or he can play inside, which gives them a flexibility if they have to change their shape at times, where now you have a true natural winger. It would probably end up being him and Kamungo on 2 separate sides, where you go into a back 4 because of injuries or because maybe something isn't working or you have to for an opponent. And I think it's like a stopgap move of they have to make the 10 signing. I don't disagree with you. But in light of that, clearly with this and Valiente, it's like, well, what can we get done now to keep ourselves above water? And I would say, while this doesn't get them closer to those teams, it separates the gap between them and the teams below them better. So if you're telling me, look at this game, that Houston's close to them, that the Galaxy, that Minnesota, whatever that group is from, what do we want to say, 6 through 10 in the West?
Mm-hmm.
I think this pushes Dallas further away from them. I think it gives them more depth. I think it makes them probably more consistent. And then you are approaching that top 5 conversation. And if you can make the next move, you push into it. That's where I see this move, which, if the numbers are right, I think is a fine move to make for this team. But it is not the we're going to win MLS Cup with Petar Musa move, which I think we've all been waiting for and we would all hope for this season. All right, let's get into our next thing, best thing I saw, which is San Jose being for real. I think we had 2 for real performances this weekend, both in the Western Conference, but we've talked about RSL a bunch, so I want to go to San Jose to start. They play Vancouver. Vancouver's coming off 2 weeks with CCC stuff. They're playing, coming off having played quote-unquote away at Seattle, which was in Spokane, and a little bit of rotation, although not a ton, from this Vancouver team. And San Jose goes into their building. The Bolaru goal is special, unbelievable moment. It's going to be one of the goals of the year. It's not just the shot, how quickly he turns out of the initial challenge. So if you haven't seen it, it's a corner kick, pops out to the top of the box. He's in a 50-50, and all of a sudden he cuts to the right and he's away into space. And I've gone back and watched multiple times. You can't even see the touch where he gets away. And then he doesn't need to be asked twice, and he's laces through it, and the thing's accelerating as it hits the back of the net. It is like one of those that probably goes through the building and down a couple of football fields if there's sort of no resistance against it, which is a huge goal for them. But now over the course of a couple of weeks where Werner's been in and out of the starting lineup, they've been a little bit less, not reliant on him because they weren't at the beginning, but he was the difference maker. The defense is for real. And that is the whole thing for them, which is you knew they'd score goals. You didn't know how many compared to last year, Preston Judd looks awesome. He should have had an assist in this game. He turns his man, and now he's starting to find space on the sides of the box to create for guys making runs. Jamar Ricketts misses a sitter on that one. If that's Timo Werner, that's probably a goal, but fine. But like that back line to stand up in Vancouver the way they did, that is a huge sign for this team.
I was higher on this team coming into the season than a lot of folks were.
It was for sure.
Yeah, well, it was for two reasons, right? It was for the same reason. It was for defense, but in two parts. One was addition through subtraction. I thought getting rid of Joseph and getting rid of Chicho Arango was only a good thing because these guys put nothing against the ball. And when you can build through an opponent's front line so easily, you're going to every single time put the midfield into a scramble. And in the modern game, nobody defends well consistently if you're scrambling. It's just like, it's axiomatic. Teams are too well drilled. We haven't had an analytics revolution in soccer, but we have had a film study revolution. If you there's so much more film and it's so much better and it's so much better understood than it was, I think, even 10, 15 years ago. That if you're going to give teams that red carpet right into your central midfield, you're screwed. They're going to rip you apart. That was a big part of it. And you look at the work Preston Judd and Ricketts and Sonny Buddha and Warner when he's on and Nico Chakiris do against the ball. It's night and day compared to what the Quakes were last year. And then the other thing is the back line, right? It's Daniel Muni, I think in his third year or fourth year, and then Reed Roberts in his second year. And Reed Roberts is kind of like a mini Tim Ream out there, left-footed, really comfortable on the ball. And just
should have given up a penalty, by the way. Still don't understand that call, but
fair. Okay. Well, he got the ball first. Come on, mate.
The whisker of a ball.
Yeah. The point is, Bruce has always done this with domestic center backs, going all the way back to Eddie Pope, back to what he had with the Red Bulls for a couple of years, going back to what he did with the Galaxy with AJ De La Garza and Omar Gonzalez, of course. Sean Franklin, doing what he did with Henry Kessler with the Revs. Like, he understands how to craft winning defenders out of, white bread, corn-fed, Big Ten American raw materials. And that's what he's got with this team, man. He actually had really interesting comments afterwards, talking about Vancouver is still a different level. We got the win. It's a great win. Vancouver's a different level from us. Our goal is to make the playoffs. That's our goal. They have bigger stuff to aim for this year. And I thought that was really well put by Bruce, but this performance showed that the gap between the Quakes and the absolute top of the table is nowhere near as big as people, even optimistic people like myself, thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and I kept landing on the schedule early. Sporting KC at home, Atlanta at home. They go to Philly, they win. Obviously, Philly are in trouble, but it's a cross-country trip. That's a big one. Seattle, they didn't look out of their depth. They lose 1-0, frustrating.
They were better.
They go to Vancouver. Yeah. They're going to come out of the break with San Diego, SKC again. There's a weird double on teams. I don't understand how that happens so early in the season because I was looking at St. Louis's schedule. And then they have LAFC. So they're going to have San Diego and LAFC in 2 of the 3 games coming out of the break. So we're going to learn a ton about whether Bruce is right. Is there a gap between them in these top 2 or 3 teams? Vancouver on a Champions League week, maybe that's sort of what they needed, and that was the difference. I don't think so, but I still, it's really, really exciting to watch this team play. As you said, the center backs are huge. That's a massive part of what they're doing. And then there is a variety in chance creation for them. There's a ton of transitional stuff. They're dangerous on set pieces. But as I said, there's moments where Judd finds space. He gets 1v1. He's the creator. Both the wide guys can be creators. Sakiris can find the pass from a little bit deeper if you need to. And then Timo Werner is a cheat code for them. He creates chances 1v1 constantly. He probably should have had a goal in this game. I can't remember who it was that he was in transition and the ball never comes to him. Wide open in transition. It's come on. You don't always have to pass to Timo Werner, but you should probably look
not
for
that
him.
one. You should have. Yeah.
You should probably look to him every once in a while in a transitional moment. So a huge result for them.
Let me just to put some sort of punctuation on what you were just talking about. You watch it and you can see it when they play, but it also is showing up in the data. The Quakes press as high and hard as anybody in the league outside of Philly, and they are creating chances off of that. Not just Gilted immediately getting into the final third, putting the ball in the box chances, but also getting opponents out of their rhythm. So when they're building up, they're not able to be clean on the ball in midfield and creating chances out of that. And that's something the Quakes absolutely did not have in their locker last year. And then the other thing is Shakira's is really good at creating those 2v1s on the outside. So when the fullbacks do overlap, Quakes start to look a little bit like the Sounders, last year's Sounders anyway, in possession where they're getting to the end line. And then the question is, do they have enough quality in the final ball? And that's where, my God, do they miss Christian Espinoza? Espinoza would be absolutely perfect for this team because he would put the ball on Werner's foot, like on the back post time and time and time again.
It's tough for a team where it's like, oh, they're having a great year. Let's talk about the most inept thing they've done, which still massively affects them. One other thing to point out, unfortunate, DeJuan Jones went down non-contact in this game. He stayed down. He seemed to immediately know it was bad. He's obviously a huge piece of this team. I think emotionally, like, he's a leader in this group. They're so young. And then as well as his ability to get to the end line, getting crosses, cut inside sometimes. He's a really special player in this league. So hoping, fingers crossed, for the best for him. But that looked like a really bad situation towards the end of this game. Last best thing we saw, Weeby's not here, so I filled in another one for him. Walker Zimmerman with the kickback bump, baby. Hosted his first show alongside Susanna on Kickback Committee last week. If you haven't listened to it, go. I was excited to have Walker as a part of this. He was even better than I expected on that show, talking NWSL at times, talking about the experience of moving and what it means for a pro athlete as you sort of fit all these things together, talking about all of his friends that he watches. He was like, I don't have a European team. I just watch like Christian Pulisic, and then I'll watch like these other guys. And you're like, oh, cool. So you're like friends with everyone. That sounds like a fun thing to do. And then he is a huge fan of Survivor and Trader, which I didn't realize. Like, huge fan of Survivor. I think he probably has encyclopedic knowledge similar to ours with soccer, where he's just rattling off stats about players. And I have not watched Survivor since season 1, so I had no idea what he's talking about. But you should go listen to that one. And then he comes off the back of that, starting alongside Josh Sargent for this team. They give up an early goal to Wessam Abu Ali in Columbus. They come from behind, and then Walker Zimmerman scores. I think it was in the 83rd minute off a corner kick, going to the near post. He flicks a header back to the far post, and it becomes the 2-1 winner for Toronto. And you're welcome, Toronto. You're welcome, Walker, as well. I texted Walker and told him that, and he's like, fine, I'll take it. I don't care.
Yeah.
For a guy who has scored a ton of goals and basically is a center forward, I don't really think it was us, but we'll take credit where we can. And congrats to Jonathan Osorio, 400th career appearance for Toronto FC. He is Toronto. So cool moment for him. And I thought Robin Fraser had some really cool comments about it in the locker room afterwards, which came out as a video. So it was not private. Thank you for being a part of it with us. Let's get into our headlines. And obviously, it's going to start with Antoine Griezmann, as Tom and everyone else reporting that he is on his way to Orlando to agree to a deal. I saw no details around this. I assume this is to come in the summer after Atleti season, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So it's just finally getting it over the line. This is a thing we've talked about a million times. We talked about it in LA. We've talked about it in Orlando. We thought it was done a month ago. We thought it was done 2 months ago. Now it seems to actually be done this time. Is that fair to say?
I mean, it seems like it. Tom's reporting it, so it's probably done.
I don't think the reporting has been bad. I think Antoine Griezmann has been inconsistent with his decision making.
He's watching the Magic play, and they've been crap most of the year. But
Anthony Black's out. It's really hurting my fantasy team.
They're really good run right now, so up to 6th in the East. So he's like, all right, I'm in. Yeah, I'm on board.
That's what he's been waiting for. This is obviously a weird moment to do it. Orlando get thrashed in Nashville, as we said off the top of the show. They lose 5-0. And it was all for real, as we said with the underlying numbers. They fired their coach in Oscar Pereja already at this point of the season. They have one victory. It's over Montreal at home. with the way the Red Bulls look, that loss looks even worse now to start. Like, this is a team in a bad spot. And now Greizmann finally is on board and he comes into it. And I don't want to underestimate what a big time talent can do. Like, we have seen players like this revitalize groups, and we have seen players like this be bigger maybe than we expected from the roles they've played in past spots. But he doesn't play center back, and it feels like a huge responsibility for him to come in and turn the season around.
Yeah, it's not like adding Thomas Mueller to last year's Vancouver team. Orlando's one of the 3 worst teams in the league, and they have needs up and down the entire roster. And Griezmann has to be just a part of that. He can't be the centerpiece that fixes everything else. And I'm not even sure he can be the centerpiece that you bear in mind the most as you're rebuilding this roster, because it's the entire roster that needs a rebuild, and it has to be agnostic of the 35-year-old, second forward that you're adding in the summer. Like, you have to have a sort of a bigger picture view than that, and everybody has to be up for assessment, from the new goalkeeper to the holdover wingers to the reconstituted central midfield, like all of it, because none of it is working for Orlando.
So I think the hope would be that he revitalizes a chunk of it, that as he comes in, Ojeda and Posses become more dangerous, and that Atuesta and the other Ojeda become more efficient, where
I don't think that, for what it's worth, I don't think that central midfield combo will ever work together. I don't think there's enough ball winning right there.
You're preaching to the choir there, which was why I had this team in 10th or whatever in the preseason. Yeah. But I think this is the best case scenario, which is you have to control games in possession. And in that control, you have to score goals. And right now, I think even if they did control games, there's not the finishing there. And Greizmann should help with some of that, as well as the San Jose convo of he has been one of the best against the ball forwards in the world over the last 15 years. Now he's 35. He's going to be playing in Orlando. It's going to be 112 degrees and whatever, but he has been that for most of his career.
Yeah. I mean, he won't be a bad signing. I don't think, but he's not going to take this roster and elevate it to something past decent. There needs to be so much more work done, and I think they need clearer eyes than they had this winter when they were adding pieces and choosing not to subtract others, because, like I said, none of it's working, and you could see it in the standings, and you could see it on the field every single week at this point.
Goalkeeper clearly is a huge hole for them. I feel like we've watched now 4 weeks where guys have come in as backup keepers for teams, where it's shocking to me that a Jonathan Bond or a Maxime Crépeau got contracts over them. And that's not just like San Diego. Like, look at what Evan Loro did, even in giving up the goals they gave up, of like, okay, this guy can play solidly. That's a huge hole. Robin Jensen will be back. Their hope is before the World Cup break, but if not, as we've talked over and over, most of the season is post-World Cup. Cartagena, I think it's probably unfair to assess him as he will be a factor this season. So you assume going into whatever next window, there's a huge gap in central midfield. You probably try and make a move at goalkeeper as well. And if they can get those right, can you save the season? Can you be a team that's threatening going into the playoffs? And then on top of all of that, you wonder how much Greizmann is a factor in a coaching search. It shows a level of intent, which I think a lot of coaches like. It's also a big thing to take over. Like, you will, in theory, if you were to sign a coach coming out of the break, they would probably like have to start Antoine Griezmann in his first game and get him involved, which is just a lot to take on as you try and build a culture and a team that you want to.
Pelado Almeida, out of a job, just got let go by Sevilla.
Stop. Don't do that to Orlando fans. Greizmann would probably like it. I mean, you come from Simeone, like, yeah, let's man mark across the field. Let's just go crazy. So that's an option as well. And then we said it over and over. So Nashville come off beating Miami in CONCACAF. And while it wasn't massive, there has been rotation. And I think you see the depth in this team. There are probably an option and a half at most positions for this team. And so, like, BJ Callahan hasn't gone 11 changes. He can mix and match a few different partnerships in central midfield. You see what Reed Baker-Whiting brings at fullback, gives rotation to Lovitz, gives an option outside of Nahar. You look at what Madrigal has brought now. So now you've got, 3 to 4 of these attacking pieces that aren't the DPs that you can rotate through, and a little bit from Rubens Pascius as well at the start of the season. I mean, they're doing it on both fronts.
And they're
absolutely slaughtered this team.
Yeah, they're changing tactically too, in that they never used to release their deep lying central midfielders to attack and to make those third, fourth man runs into the box.
Is a number 10,
right? It's like so. There's growth not just in terms of quality in the roster, but in terms of tactical flexibility and how they're going at teams. And I mean, Orlando just got trucked, and I expect Nashville to give Club America hell.
Yeah.
They were better than Miami. You know, it wasn't by a ton, but they were better than Miami by enough to go through. And that's not nothing, especially when you consider the history of these two teams, and especially when you consider the chances that Nashville actually left on the table in that first league, or in the first leg rather. Like they didn't advance to the quarterfinals by accident. They got a real chance to win this thing.
So Nashville comes out of the break on the road at Chicago. Then they go midweek against Club America. That's the first leg at home. They then go on the road to Charlotte on the weekend. Then they go to Mexico City. Then they go straight to Atlanta.
I think Charlotte is going to face Huntsville.
Yeah.
Like, that is not going to be the first choice.
Well, it's a regional rivalry,
side.
Huntsville against Charlotte. So it's a pretty big. I think Atlanta would like to see Huntsville as well, if possible.
I've wanted to see Thomas Williams and Adam Sipic get some minutes. Yeah. So there you go.
So it's reasonable in that. I mean, those are winnable MLS games. The question just, I don't think it's I don't know that there's that many places for this to come up where it's, what's the focus and what are you going to do, right? Nashville, they've won one trophy ever. They won Open Cup last year, but you have a real shot at Shield. You have to feel that way right now. You're going into Club America to potentially then face a semifinal and a final. CONCACAF is still far off, and we know Mike Jacobs understands what CONCACAF does to a team, right? The guy's lived his life in MLS. And as I compliment those tweaks, I would say it felt like leg one against Miami. It was, okay, we got to rotate a little, Corcoran gets to start. At no point in that Miami series, it feel like BJ Callahan threw all the chips in and were this is what this season will be defined by. I don't know that they do that against Club America either. And I don't know if you can go down there and get the win if that's the case.
Yeah, I think I agree with the second part. They have to go all chips in to get past Club America at this point in CONCACAF Champions Cup. I think it's worth it. I think this is what you play for moments like this. Club America is the biggest and most successful team in North American soccer history. You don't chances like this to go toe to toe them and potentially eliminate them, because this is not a great version of Club America right now. This is kind of this is credibility on a silver platter, and you have to go for it. I love the Shield. We all know where I've stood on the Shield for 30 years. But that has to take a backseat. It just has to take a backseat. It just does.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you, but also I'm a nerd for this thing, and it's what I care about, and I don't know that that's the case for everyone. The winner of Nashville America will play the winner of Tigres Seattle, because of Tigres.
Did you choose the Nashville shirt purposely today?
I just love this shirt. It's a great shirt. Yeah. But yeah, I'm always repping Nashville. I don't really have any connection to the city. I've only been there twice for a very short amount of time, but I'm always a fan of it, and hopefully I'll get to go to an MLS Cup there or something big. Maybe
or a CONCACAF Champions League final.
I said this on the show last week. I should have gone to LAFC Alajuelense. That seems like a dream game, but I don't know if there's enough games maybe in Mexico on a week. I might find a way to wander around and be there. Okay. That's all for our convo there on Orlando and Nashville. Let's get to LAFC setting the record. They start the season with the longest shutout streak in MLS history. They've got one lineup, and they're going to play it. And whether you like it or not, you're getting the hits over and over again. Everyone made jokes about the rotation that would be coming out of the Alajuelense away game into Austin this week, and that was not the case. There's one or two moves that that they make. They normally only move the young guys who seem like they should be playing all the minutes, like Ordaz and David Martinez.
How does Ordaz not even get off the bench in this game?
Mark Dos Santos, baby. And yet I'm following Happy Foot Sadfoot, who's mocking everyone for saying, how could you be mad at MDS? We're in first place. We're into the next round of CONCACAF. And now they've set the record for longest shutout streak to start a year. They did so against Austin on the road. No Owen Wolf, long-term injury still. Brandon Vasquez working his way back. No Danny Pereira, no Jaden Nelson. So some real hits to Austin's ability to attack. And then Austin scores this goal from Mirto Uzuni that he's got the crown on. Everyone's celebrating. He's back, baby. Albania's going to a World Cup. Like the whole vibes. And then VAR wipes it off. And watching that experience of everyone, I think a lot of non-LAFC fans were like, okay, cool. Let's end the streak thing. Let's stop talking about this. And then it like came back in after looking like it was out. And this game ends 0-0 in this one. And I don't know, Doyle. I mean, we all keep saying, well, you're seeing them get tired. You're seeing the issues. But until they actually fall off, we don't have the proof that Mark Dos Santos is wrong.
That's okay.
Got to put it some way.
I watched Brendan Heinzike run down Son Heung-min on a light breakaway. So, I mean, there are other forms of proof besides losing a game, and that felt pretty stark. Look, man, they're leggy. They're not creating much with the ball like they were at the start of the year, and opponent quality might have something to do with that. But still, they haven't looked dangerous. I think like 4 of their last 5 goals have come from outside of the box, just like straight bangers, and that's great. To have the talent to do that, you need to win games like that occasionally, but you can't rely on it again and again and again. Those types of goals dry up. If you want to see evidence, look at FC Cincinnati, because it was Evander goals from outside of the box that got them to within 1 point of the Supporter Shield last year. He's not scoring those goals anymore. We're Cincinnati now.
Yeah.
So they're not creating in the finals. They're not creating with the ball. The defense is awesome. Tafari and Porteous and Segura, and it's usually been Palencia on like these guys are really good players, and Hugo Lloris is playing, I think, his best soccer since coming to MLS. So like there's a lot that is going right back there. Schwanier was a brilliant signing, your guy, and Mark Delgado just forever. Like there's all, but like holy crap, they're gonna run it. Like the tank is already on empty. I don't care that they haven't given up a goal yet. I don't care that they're currently atop the Western Conference standings. Like they look gassed. Rotate that team.
Yeah. My guess would be if we sat down with John Thorrington, which this will never happen in this conversation, so like which one do you want to win, that they would pick CONCACAF, which is fine. And I think there's a clear understanding for LAFC of like, they can put together good runs late. They can be a threat. I don't know that the Shield is the focus. That's the part that's weird about this.
Yeah. Like, if that's the way you feel, then why did you just run out your first 11 on short rest at Austin?
And again, I'm making that up from outside, but like it feels pretty obvious for a club that's already won a Shield. They've won MLS Cup. Like I think maybe MLS Cup would be first, but like you're not going to win MLS Cup in March. LAFC will be in the playoffs. There's no world that they look back and say, if we didn't get that 1 point in Austin on March 20th, we wouldn't have made the postseason. We wouldn't have a shot at this. And that's the part that's really hard to comprehend, as well as you go through CONCACAF, like that's the physical toll on the players. It's the travel to Costa Rica. It's now Cruz Azul at altitude and the travel experience with that. It could be Toluca at altitude. Maybe it's the LA Galaxy if you get, I would straight up just say lucky at this point because the Galaxy aren't very good and Toluca are very good. So like maybe you get lucky and that's the case. But if not, you're going to altitude twice, coming off the longest trip in CONCACAF to all the way down to Costa Rica. And inside of all of that, like you're throwing out your best team on the road against an Austin team that can't generate chances. There's a pretty good chance you tie this game 0-0 if you had rotated.
Right.
Like that's the part that I think is pretty frustrating for a lot of people watching this from afar. And as you said, like this team is very good and it doesn't feel like that could be the case if you run them all into the ground, where this could be a special season for this team as well. On the Austin side of things, It's tough. It doesn't really feel like it fits together a lot, as we said. And like the big piece to me the whole time was Jaden Nelson. And I think you see it in the space Joseph Rosales gets. There is space out wide. There is space to run at defenders. There's space to put in decent service. Rosales can't do most of that. If you put Nelson in those spots, you're a little bit more dangerous. But in all of that, you're requiring a lot from this one piece who you're paying 5 guys more than him. And then he's supposed to be the one who's a difference maker. And now that he's out hurt, you see like just a huge hole in chance creation for this team.
Yeah, him and Wolf. And I'm going to reserve judgment on Austin one way or the other until we see those guys back. But because they were two different teams last year, the first half of the year, they just played on the counter, and the underlying numbers were good, and they smash and grab some wins. But then as they tried to become a little more ambitious with the ball, the defense fell apart, and the team down the stretch, second half of the year, really, but then down the stretch and into the playoffs, they got trucked by LAFC.
Yeah.
So I'm very much believe it when I see it from Austin. Like, I need to see all the pieces together to believe this is anything more than just like another 45-point season with a very limited ceiling, but a relatively high floor, because the defense is good and because Brad Stuver continues to be very good. That was something I was a little worried about at the end of last year. He like the final third of the season, Brad Stuver was bad, and this team cannot survive if Brad Stuver is anything less than excellent. And so far this season, he's been back to peak Brad Stuver.
I think he's third now all time in continuous starts in an MLS career. Luis Robles is obviously number 1. I don't know if Ramondo or Beckerman is 2. This is is continuous, not all time. But he's moved into some like pretty prestigious space with that one, with his consistency of getting on the field and, for the most part, consistency in the way he's played. Okay, if you're listening to Sirius Radio, we're going to go a little bit long, so you can jump over to the on-demand player to hear the full show, or search SoccerWise anywhere you get your podcasts. Let's hit a couple of these big headlines, and then we'll talk some of the sadder teams. But I want to start with, to me, the other like for real performance this weekend was RSL, even though they've done it for a couple weeks. And that San Diego RSL game is as good a game as we're going to see in MLS this season. 2-2. I think for San Diego, coming off the Champions League game, that's big. Also, you had to play Manu Dua because he was suspended. You were going to play some of these other pieces anyway, so they kind of end up putting a full team out there. And there was this incredible trade-off. 15-minute segments of, okay, we're balling, now you are. And it wasn't just, oh, we take our foot off the gas. It was these two teams, when they have the intent, when they're locked in, they're really hard to get around. It's hard to get the ball off them. And there's chance creation in that for both of them. And it was like awesome to watch as RSL continues to get healthier.
The styles make fights aspect of this was awesome. And RSL are they kind of gave a masterclass on how to be a counterattacking transition team without being completely odious about it. Like, they end up being really fun to watch. And part of that is just Xavier Gozo keeps elevating almost by the week. And it's just like he's very clearly a special player, and he gives them a dynamism on and off the ball that most teams don't have. And one of the principles for Pablo Mastroeni over the years, no matter what shape they've been playing, is to make the field big. They hit more long balls than almost anybody. They hit more switches than anybody, period. And now that they're playing sort of the 3-4-2-1 with high and wide wing backs, one of which is Gozo.
And the other one, Sanabria, is awesome as well.
Right, yeah. Different kind of player.
Yeah.
Like more of a chance. Like Gozo's just a winger.
Yeah.
It's like they are just devastating when they're able to make the field big like that. And look, they were using San Diego's MO against them. San Diego, they will take chances with the ball. They will, like, San Diego first and foremost want to drag you upfield and then combine small passes and then get in behind you. If you don't take the bait, then they'll just steadily come upfield and leave space in behind them. And that's what we saw back and forth as you said, in like these 15-minute segments, as one team would have the initiative and then the other would. And it was so great. It was so great.
And the thing that's really fun with this RSL group is, in what you talked about, the way they stretch you wide, is then, whether it's Gulavogi, whether it's Hezerkani, now it will be Diego Luna a lot. they have space in that middle area where they play as 10s. And Gulavogi is interesting. He is like I think we will see a space, non-Messi conversation, where he might be the most creative passer in the league. Like every part of the foot that he can hit a ball with to give the exact shape and speed he wants. But a lot of what makes him
he had one play last night where it looked like they had him penned in and he was able to turn in like the tightest little angle and then take an extra beat and then slide. Jeez, I'm not even sure who it was.
Yeah.
Just slide him through, and it was
he turned out to the right and then got, I think it was Solon's through between the center back in a gap that didn't look like it existed.
Yeah,
he had one where he tried to lead someone that Manu Dua got a touch to, and it was like greatness on greatness, where you're like, that pass doesn't exist. I don't even see that pass. He tries it, he almost hits it, and then Dua backtracking, falling over, gets a touch to it. But like, clearly Gulavogi needs the channels to play in, and he wants to create. He doesn't seem like he's going to take guys on at pace as often, and it doesn't seem like the play's going to end on his feet. And it feels like RSL's perfectly set up where they've got now Solans as an option to wheel off the back shoulder. I think Hezarkhani as well, a second guy making a run in. Gozo's runs off that right channel. That lets Gulavogi sort of have options to create off of. And then all that space is there because you got to go wide with them. And you have to go wide and you have to track Gozo. And like, there is just a ton of space, whether it's in transition or in set plays, where it feels like for him to work. Where I think back to last year where Diego Luna was just from a standing position attacking set defenses that were fully lined up in front of him. It feels like a totally different world right now. And then Luna just coming back from injury, there was a moment yesterday where it's like they're in transition. It hits Luna. He beats the first guy. He lays it off for Gulavogi, who immediately hits a blind ball into Gozo in the channel. And you're like, this thing is flowing from left to right and is going to be really dangerous.
Yeah. And I think they've shown it already, right? Like and to be fair, San Diego were coming off of that game at Toluca. They played at 8,200 feet or whatever it is, partially rotated squad. So it's not like, it's the same principle that we were talking about with the Quakes Caps segment. I still think San Diego's a level above what RSL have to offer. But between what RSL's done now against the Sounders, beating them a couple weeks ago, which to be fair, they always do in Utah, but still, and going to San Diego and outplaying them for the final 30 minutes and coming out of there with a 2-2 draw, they're close. They're close and they're coming.
And San Diego's just must watch anytime they're on the field. It's this, Pellegrino's been a perfect addition to Dreyer, and he creates one. He has a couple chances to score himself. He's super dangerous. I would love to see Lewis Morgan now. He gets to start in Toluca. Like, can you be healthy for a little bit and be a guy? Because it feels like another factor, whether it's him out on the run with Dreyer as 2 instead of 1, or if it's a whole new, well, when we're in deep, we can hit early and you can go by yourself. It just would be another addition to this group.
What is going on with Chucky Lozano? How is this not a bigger, like, he's completely exiled. I haven't seen a single rumor about him ending up somewhere.
No one's going to pay him what he makes.
Yeah.
So there's one choice left. San Diego made their choice. They announced he won't play for the team. So San Diego can't shift off that. Like, it's done. And with the success they've had on the field, there's no world that they would at this point. So the only thing left, the decision is, does Chucky want to play or not? If he doesn't want to play, he gets paid a ton of money to not play soccer. If he wants to play, then he can take some form of buyout and he can go play. That's the only thing left to happen. And like, there's no other, we don't really have this scenario often. So it's not an obvious timeline that we're going with. It's purely just on Chucky's life decision of like what he wants to do at this point. It's a bizarre scenario. I think San Diego mishandled it by putting themselves in a corner, but like that was 4 stations ago. So we don't really have a lot to go back to and do. And like, maybe the proof will be in the pudding, which is there's a culture that they're building. And by saying this, it reestablished to everyone else, like, we value what we value. And they put Toluca on the ropes and they beat Pumas, and they're going to be at the top of the Western Conference. So maybe in the end, that's it will be worth it. I think they mishandled it then. And now at this point, there's only one thing left to wait for.
It's crazy that they're this good with one hand tied, but really more than one hand tied behind their back, because they're like, they only have one DP on this team, man. Like they only have one guy who I would consider to be a high level match winner in this league. Provisional 2 if Lewis Morgan comes back and he's a 2022 or 2024 version of Lewis Morgan, but that's such a massive if. I like it. It bothers me because when MLS teams are this good, I always want them to go for it. I always want them to eat the contract, find a way out of it, and go add another high level piece, because chances like this don't come around all that often.
So here's the other thing, though. They only have one U22 initiative player, as we have listed. So if you only have one, do you trigger the 242? Like, do you still get the $2 million in allocation if you want it, if you have the two DPs?
You have to elect. My understanding is that the CSO has to elect.
But if you elect to do it and you don't max out the 4 DP spots, you still get the money for only having 2 DPs.
Correct.
Okay. Because the other thing about this, like, they could go get U22 initiative players. Like, there is other avenues for them to spend money in this, or they could get a 3rd DP. Like, that's their choice. All of this is their choice.
And they have plenty of GAM, right? So like the part of the reason that they have plenty of GAM,
4.2 million is what we have listed.
Tyler Heaps has done a really great job of managing this budget and making extra GAM and not getting out over his skis. And like part of that is opting for the 242 build so that you have 2 million. So like, he hasn't been a spendthrift. But like now you're into the, like, I don't know. It just feels like the right time for them to make some big moves. But then again, maybe it's not. Let me ask you this. If you're San Jose and you need another winger, another high-level match winner, and I know Chucky's better on the left than the right, but you can play on the right.
Yeah. In this scenario, San Diego would have to accept some of the salary, right? Like, you're not paying Chucky full if you're another team, are you?
I mean, I probably wouldn't.
So I can give us what we have reported here. So Chucky Lozano is on $7.6 million.
Yeah, it's a lot of
guaranteed deal through 2028. So if you were to bring him, if you were to cash for him or whatever, which I would assume the cash for would be $1,
right?
Or you get him on acquisition loan, whatever, you would be on the hook for him through the 2028 season. So this season and 2 more. To me feels like too much. So I think San Diego has to eat some of it. I don't know if they'd be willing to. My assumption is they would, because like, what's the advantage to not at this point? San Jose was less in my wheelhouse of like, can freaking Colorado get a free big name player and have him play for a year or 2, right? Kevin Cabral style, like, but with a ton of marketing around him. Mm-hmm. And I sort of thought more like it's got to be a bottom end of the league. If I was San Jose, I would wait for like a real player that I acquire that I want, I guess is my main answer around
the question though is like, is that going to happen given the ownership situation in San Jose? Whereas now, because we know San Jose is trying to sell, right? And there's stuff that's going on around the team that's important for them and really useful for them to try to find a buyer. One of them is they can suddenly do 15 concerts a year now, and that's a huge revenue stream. You know what else would be a huge revenue stream? Getting a Mexican national team player
who sells
for
jerseys.
free. Like all we have to do is eat his salary, and he's our player.
The thing though is, if you got a normal DP who could be a difference maker, the transfer fee and salary combined might still be cheaper than Chucky Lozano. Nico 4 in the chat says if San Diego eats his salary, it doesn't clear the DP spot. It would, because in this scenario, they would quote unquote buy him out. The buyout agreement would be for a lower number. And the buyout agreement, I think this is, Tom always says this is what Joseph did with Atlanta and Miami. Then there's the built-in agreement for Chucky of, then I'm going to go sign the deal for the rest of the money or whatever other money I want to be whole with that team. And that's the only way that you get to the negotiation where San Diego can get a quote-unquote deal if they want. And then when they do that, that spot becomes opened up because they've bought out that spot. San Diego could buy him out for everything. They'd have to pay him $21 million to never play for them again.
The other aspect of this is Chucky part of El Tree. Like
I
he
think
was
that's
in.
dead at this point. Like
You think
we're in
so?
March. I 2 months ago I said the same thing. He's got to want to play, right? He's got to want to make his way into the team. He's not coming into this camp. It feels like
Yeah.
there's no world in which this
Yeah.
guy gets out of this team, plays 6 games in MLS, and gets back into a World Cup roster at this point.
El Tree hasn't been great, man.
No, Brian Gutierrez, baby. You know,
That's true.
yeah, we've got a Chucky Lozano at home. We don't need that one. We've got the Kirkland brand version.
So I'm just looking at it. He played 1, 2, 3. He played 5 of their friendlies back in autumn, and it was all the same teams that the U.S. played. It was Japan, South Korea, Uruguay, and all that. So
and they were terrible. They got booed off the
5
field
of the
against
6.
Uruguay.
Yeah, they didn't win any of them.
Yeah.
So that's not good. And then they've played 3. So, and obviously he hasn't been in any of the squads this year. They've played 3 of them. Now it's Panama, Bolivia, and Iceland. So not murderers row.
No.
But they've won all 3 games. And just looking back at it, he hasn't really been. Man, you got to kind of go back to the 2022 cycle.
Well, he was hurt. That was the thing. In Europe, he was hurt. He was off and on. He couldn't stay healthy. Then he comes. He's hurt out the gate. And then whatever else happened with San Diego. Now, I will say this from what I've heard. What's happened in San Diego is what people across Liga MX worried about with him, which is why there's no one jumping to say, I'll take him. Remember, Giovanni Dos Santos was on LA Galaxy. He was a 4th DP when they could only have 3. They didn't know what to do with him. They ended up buying him out. But every Liga MX team was like, we would take him. Like, we want him. No one is saying that about Chucky right now.
Yeah, not even Pachuca.
So he would need to revitalize his career. And that no one's going to pay him $21 million to do that. So he's got to find a solution in there on his own. And for San Diego, I guess if they continue to get the results, they're not going to panic to make the move and do something with it. Okay, one more team to mention here, and then we're going to talk some under pressure teams before we get out of here. I got a St. Louis too early playoff pick that I went with. I felt bad about it. They started the year, Charlotte at home should have won. Then they had San Diego, Seattle, and LAFC. Those are pretty good teams. Now they come from behind. They beat the Revs. I still worry about goal scoring, but Hartel's goal is maybe going to be the goal of the year. Even off the mistake, it is absurd. He strikes through it with to create the pace with the cut, but also to even try it off that bounce with Turner sort of off his line is insane. But Johan Demay's team feels like they have a culture and the way the ball moves, the way they connect. I don't know that the quality's there, but I'm excited about it. So now they play the Revs, and every St. Louis fan is attacking or coming at me on social, being like, "You were right. Now we play a bad team. Finally, a team on our level." They now have at NYCFC, at FC Dallas, and then they play at Seattle. First of all, I don't know I don't understand why all these teams are playing the same team again 6 weeks in, and none of that is easy. So maybe the St. Louis take will die before it was ever even born. Let's talk about these under pressure teams before we get out of here. Charlotte probably would have been in this, 4 goals on the year, but 6 against the Red Bulls helps them get out of it. I think 3 of them before the red card, and then 3 of them after.
2 before the red card, and then
one was the free kick. The red card was
from the red
before.
card. Yeah.
And the Red Bulls. I mean, Red Bull fans are going through it. Starting me at center back at this point probably doesn't feel like a best case scenario for this team. And so Charlotte gets the victory for that.
And maybe you in goal as well.
Maybe. I'm not bad. I got reaction saves in there. You never know.
I mean, that's better than what they're getting currently. So.
Sometimes I could surprise you. So the teams on this list, Philly, Cincinnati, Portland, and LA Galaxy. We'll do Portland and LA Galaxy, obviously, together because they played against each other. Let's start Philly. Have yet to win this season. They go to Club America. They put together a pretty good fight on the road. They almost find their way into the next round of the CONCACAF. They come home. They lose 2-1 to Chicago, who have also been a struggle in this one. What do you make of what you saw from Philly this weekend, and if anything positive is coming?
I think the real Philly is probably the version that we saw on the road at Club America, like a really energetic team, good defensively, doesn't have enough quality in attack to beat the big boys, but they're not going to be an easy out. The performance that they put in this weekend against the Fire, I think was just we left everything on the field on Wednesday in at 7,200 feet, and we have nothing left in the tank, and they wilted in the second half, and that's not surprising at all. Bigger picture, though, sold their 3 best players or 3 of their 4 best players, however you want to look at it, and did not adequately replace them. And that means there's pressure on the coach to come up with a plan B. And this is basically another St. Louis segment, because St. Louis fans hate Bradley Carnell because he never had a plan B. He never had any way to make his team more than the sum of their parts, other than run harder. Run harder. Like that was it. And that's what we're seeing from Philly. I think, look, we know that it's a resilient game model. The Union are eventually going to score some goals, and they are not going to go no wins, 34 losses, and no draws. I think they're probably going to end up being a fringe playoff team in the Eastern Conference. But the front office and ownership made the decision this winter to chase short-term profit over competitiveness in 2026. And that's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. Cavan got a bunch of minutes, has been good. Jakupovic continues to play, right?
I thought Cavan was great in Mexico against Club America. I thought he was their best chance
Don't
creator.
worry,
Maybe
Charlie quoted you on the show on Thursday from Tactics
okay, I
Free
missed that.
Zone.
Yeah.
You got your point in there. Don't worry about it, Doyle. You got there. I want to mention on the Chicago side of things, I thought Kuipers was awesome in this game.
He was great.
Yeah.
This was maybe the best game I've seen him play.
And it was activity outside of just in front of goal. He is creative in how he gets to goal, like on some of the mistakes from Philly. I didn't think there was an immediate shot in there or a chance that he's able to get to. And then as he was more dangerous, he realized the pressure came to him, and he's releasing the wide guys, and he's making runs to pull interest. And I don't want to be annoying for Chicago fans, but my thought in this game was, man, if they sign Lewandowski, an MLS team is hitting the lottery in getting Kuipers, because he looks really, really good right now. And then on Bamba, I thought he was really underwhelming, and then he scores. Like, I literally was going to put on Blue Sky. What would you say you do here? Like, he's not coming inside, he's not creating chances. He had I think a really open opportunity for a cross that he just completely misses. But then he scores the goal on a really good finish. Holly Salese should have scored one of the goals of the year. His touch was a little bit long. And the one thing I would say about Chicago, I love Robin Ludd, but he is a dangerous for a possession player. And I think over the first 60 minutes of this game, you are seeing a lack of a game breaker. And it doesn't have to be 11 of them, but it doesn't feel like there's one in this team that they create the chance by themselves outside of the flow of the game. And while Kuipers sort of in what he does was able to create those, that feels to me right now like the limit on the Chicago team.
Yeah. Look, Saletros has been disappointing, the Swedish guy that they signed to play central midfield. And I know they probably needed to make that signing, given they were a little thin there, but also maybe they didn't. Maybe just ride with Sergio Orahel and give him minutes, because he's just a ball mover too, and he had good moments. The other aspects that we should touch on here, Andrew Gutman back relieves some of the playmaking or addresses some of the barrenness with regard to playmaking from this team, because he is one of the best overlapping fullbacks in the league. And the other thing is, a lot of the fire, ceiling and floor both determined by Jay Davila. Like the first half, he was behind the play, and it's like, oh, if this is the version of him that you're getting, then they could lose to anybody. And then the second half, he was completely locked in. And maybe that was Philly losing their legs, right? Because they had just played a big game at 7,200 feet or whatever Mexico City is. Maybe the game slowed down, but we have seen this from him pretty consistently over the past year, where he's just like a completely different player from one half to the other. And like, if Greg Berhalter can figure out how to get this guy at the same level week after week after week, the Fire are going to be a really dangerous team if Andre Franco comes back healthy.
Yep. Gutman fires that cross in for the opening goal. That thing is moving at 100 miles per hour. Good luck for whoever has to put their head on the end of it, but Kuipers will take it for the goal. Let's hit Cincinnati quick here, because I think we've talked a lot about Cincinnati. They come from behind, down a man against Montreal. This game was like a bizarro world version of a professional soccer game. Wiki Carmona, obviously the best attacker in the league, as we all expected. He scores from distance. Cincinnati works their way back in. And then Miles Robinson gets the red card, which leads to the PK, which makes it 3-2. And then Cincinnati comes back and they win 4-3, down a man for 30 minutes against Montreal at home. Ekenike was super involved in this game, which was huge for them. And honestly, like, not to go full Bobby Warshaw on this thing, but like maybe the most promising part of this game was Denke scores the winner and him and Evander celebrate together the whole time. It felt like they were a little more connected throughout this game, and maybe they hit a breaking point this week where they were like, neither of us can do this by ourselves. But it's hard to take like a ton of new stuff from Cincinnati after something like this, except for from a cultural point of view. They didn't give up like they have twice in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's the glass half full look at this from Cincinnati, because they could have, coming off what happened against Tigres, they could have just, once they went down to 10 men, they could have just called it, right? And that would have been almost them calling it on their season, and maybe even calling it on the Pat Noonan era. And it says something, at least, that they didn't. There's certainly a lot of talent, but I just look at their reactions against the ball. Like, anytime possession is lost, there's 4 or 5 people standing around. And it's not just Evander and Denke. It's Ayoub Jabari, who hit the freaking lottery. How did this get this contract? My God. But like, if you're not out there pressing, trying to win what is your point? And the gap between Jabari, and I know he scored a goal in this one, but the gap between Jabari and Tom Barlow is huge, and not in the direction you would think. And Obina Debodo being half the player he was 3 years ago, and the back line being completely like unattached and just like incoherent. It all looks so bad, and hopefully, like, nobody in the league needed this break more than Cincinnati does. Hopefully they can figure something out in film study, and hopefully they can figure something out culturally, and take whatever happened in the last 15 minutes and turn it into something that is part of who this team is going forward. And if they don't do that, they're roadkill. Like, they're gonna get treated the way Tigres treated them.
Okay, I've got 3 minutes before I have to get out of here. Let's hit Portland Galaxy. Portland goes down a man. See the running, recurrence and all of this. Kamal Miller gets the early red card in the 20th minute, I think it was. They proceed to tie 1-1. Galaxy, few chances created once they went up, and Portland ends up looking kind of like the better team. But then images come out post-game. I mean, we're getting images of the bench sent to us of, do they look defeated, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think that's a lot of guys that got subbed off that aren't super stoked. And then Phil Neville being upset as he walked off the field. So it doesn't feel great right now for Portland.
No, it doesn't feel great. I think that they haven't won since opening day, and they actually played really well the first 20 minutes of this game. I think it was their best stretch of the year, but part of that might just be because the Galaxy are bad, right? The Galaxy
and flew from Jamaica to play.
Yeah, and so like there are some asterisks, but these are 2 more teams that really need to use the international break and try to figure out who they are and how to integrate the pieces they have into something more coherent, because both of them are less than the whole is less than the sum of its parts. And it was really, really disappointing to see the Galaxy up a man for 70 minutes and creating so little against the Portland team that has not been able to defend all year long.
Yeah, I thought Anthony was the most dangerous player on either team, which there's a limit to what he gets in dangerous spots. There's not the final product. With the Galaxy, what's bizarre is like Klaus has been good. And like, that's not the issue. The issue is the guys who were there already. It's a great assist from Marco Reus, but again, he doesn't pull the strings. He doesn't control the flow of the game. And it feels like there's not a game that Peck has played with him where he looks better than when he plays without him. And so this is a Galaxy team. If they're not going to be great defensively, and they're probably not going to be great defensively, they might be good, but not great. Right. They've got to be dangerous in the attack. And it just feels like it's been in third gear most of the season, including Champions League, where they ran it up against a team that was missing 9 players when they went on the road and all of that. But we're going to revisit all of this. We've got some MLS talk we're going to be doing on Thursday. We've got, of course, U.S. men's national team and Canadian national team previews that we will do with those camps out. maybe we'll talk about Jesse Marsch and all of that and the experience he's gone through over the last few years. But thank you to all of you for watching live with us and being in the chat. Thank you to all of you for listening. Doyle, thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you all again very, very soon.